Welcome to Success Matters. In today's episode, we're honored to introduce you to Tony Holness, a man who took a courageous leap of faith to leave the corporate world behind and embark on a remarkable journey with his autistic son, Sam. Together, they've transcended boundaries, challenged societal expectations, and discovered the incredible power of determination and love. When Sam was diagnosed with autism, Tony and his wife faced a choice that many parents can relate to embrace the challenges or let them define the future. They chose the former, setting out on a journey to not just support Sam but to empower him. Their journey led them to the world of ironman triathlons, a grueling test of endurance, strength and willpower. Through countless training sessions, hurdles and triumphs, Tony and his son found a unique way to communicate and connect, transcending the barriers that autism sometimes presents. Together, they've shown us the boundless potential of the human spirit and how the power of a parent's love can move mountains. Get ready for an awe-inspiring and heartwarming conversation as we dive deep into Tony and Sam's journey and the powerful lessons that can be learned when we dare to take a different path and redefine the boundaries of what's possible. So Tony, thank you very much for joining Success Matters. I've known you for a while already through business, but actually I've been following you and your son's progress really through the posts you make on LinkedIn. Now, your son is an autistic triathlete, and you took a decision to step away from corporate life to actually coach him to be a champion. So I suppose let's start at the beginning. When your son was born and he was diagnosed with autism, what did that mean for you, and how did that affect your life as he was growing up?
I think the first thing is you don't know what autism is.
Right.
And but there were some clear signs that everything wasn't right. Mm-hmm. For example, his speech was delayed. He didn't speak till he was 6, actually. He wasn't very social with other children. So when you go to events, so when you go to one of those play areas with the kids, he'd be happy to be on his own, doing his own thing, and not necessarily looking to socialize with anyone. So it wasn't that group play. So you'd see traits, and there were traits that you're saying, why is this happening? Yeah. And, you look at it, and then because he wasn't talking, we took him to speech and language therapy, did a hearing test, all of the sorts of normal things that a parent would do. Mm-hmm. And I don't think a lot of people knew a lot about autism at the time. And then they said he's on the autistic spectrum, and a little bit of panic. Yeah. And then you start researching it, as, we do in our business. No, I just read everything. And then you read things that the French, for example, said it didn't exist. And right, it was a woman who didn't love the baby while it was in her womb, so it became the woman's fault.
Okay.
Yep. Everything from she was drinking a glass of wine to smoking cigarettes, and my wife didn't do. Right. All the sorts of things. So there was very much of a blame culture, and not, I think, a good understanding of the neurological issue. Right. And then when Sam was about 3, we should take him to the gym so he could go and swim every Sunday.
Okay.
And he was 3, so we put him in a pool, and, being overly cautious parents, he had 2 armbands on and a body band and everything so that he'd never go under in the water. Had only child as well, so we were ultra cautious.
Okay.
But while he was in the water, I think that sense of weightlessness and freedom something clicked in his mind. So he just started swimming, up and down the pool. Mm-hmm. I remember, it was 20 odd years ago now. So Carl, who was the swim coach at the company, said, I can teach him to swim in an afternoon. And we said, there's just no way you can do it, because he barely listens to us.
Yeah.
He's very single-minded and, not communicating. Carl said, not a problem. Believe it or not, within an hour, all the armbands, all the flotation aids were off.
Wow.
And he was swimming widths of the pool in the deep end.
Wow.
So that was an eye-opener to us. Mm-hmm. Then we just had to get on. We sort of get on people. Children never asked to be born or brought into this world. Nobody wants a child to be born with a disability, but it happens.
Yeah.
20% of the world's population is neurodiverse. So all of us are different. We're shorter, fatter, taller, whatever it is. We think different and problem solve differently. Mm-hmm. And I think that was a big eye-opener for me, because it challenged all of my own prejudices.
Right.
As well. And that was probably the biggest thing. And after that, it was challenges with local authority, schools, ed psychologists, local authority. We put every penny, every ounce, every minute of our effort into thinking we could find a solution.
Mm-hmm.
And in hindsight, I can look back now and say, we have found a solution. We need to live in his world. So we totally changed.
So the solution you were looking for was to find a way in which he could fit into the world that we know.
Mm.
And that means changing so many things that you can't, and therefore you've decided you fit into his world. Is that a summary?
Yes, good summary. It was a learning process for us because,
right.
Again, I like you've been in IT, so I have this logical progression of how you solve things. Everything has a solution. If you work hard enough, has a solution. But then you understand that we barely know anything about the human mind, and therefore I was trying to solve something that was unsolvable.
Right.
Yeah, and I didn't even know that. So the frustration for me was it's not the big things. It's I was into cricket quite a lot, and my son couldn't catch a ball.
Right.
Because he had weak motor skills.
Yeah. So
he was never going to play for England or the West Indies. So it was like...
Did you like, as your Sam was growing up, did you think, why isn't he catching the ball? Or was it like you realised that was... Because he had this diagnosis quite early, right? So was it that you realised that this is part of him and his being? Or was there frustration that he couldn't do certain things that he felt he should be doing, by the age of 6 or whatever it was?
Well, definitely. I still throw the ball at him. He can catch it now.
Okay.
You see, the things I never stopped throwing the ball.
Right.
Because it's a motor skill.
Mm-hmm.
And I think we'll probably get on to some of this. So I think if you repeat a task often enough, you can master it.
Yeah.
It's like learning a language. The more you speak it, the better you get at it. And Sam had some classic traits. He learned to touch type by the time he was 7. Taught himself to touch type.
Okay.
You word a minute.
Right.
And that's because he just sat down there with a typing program and he loved it. And he just put his head down and got on with it. And, he quite happily just turned the computer on and go, tap, 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 tap. And because it gave him positive feedback, every time he increased his typing speed, it would say, well done. You got another 10 stars. That's what he liked. It was that feedback in that closed world where things didn't change. And the same applied to numbers. So he's okay at math and mental arithmetic, but the thing is numbers don't change. 1 and 1's always 2.
Yeah.
Yeah? 7 squared is always 49, I think, whatever it is. But he knows that now because it's a structure, it's a pattern, and it's repeatable.
Right.
I think it took me about 9 years before he rode a bicycle.
Okay.
And lots of bicycles. He rode his first bicycle at 14.
Right.
And I had him on the back of the bike, sitting in front of me on the bike. I pulled him behind me on the bike. I bought bikes, which he just threw down in the road because he was frustrated and he couldn't ride it.
Mm-hmm.
And then one morning he got up, got on the bike and rode it up and down the road, just like that.
Okay.
And I don't know why.
Yeah. You must have been smiling from cheek to cheek when you saw him riding that bike down the road.
No, more frustration.
Oh, okay.
I built up this whole thing on, so you try a bit of carrot, you try a bit of stick, I can pay him money to do it and he still won't do it. In the Homer Simpson school of parenting, by his love, or pay for his love. And I tried all of those things on. Bribe him with gifts and he just wouldn't do it. And one morning he got up and lo and behold, he could ride a bicycle. And the same thing happened with tying a shoelace. He couldn't tie his shoelaces. And no matter how we tried all techniques to look at on YouTube, we went to the shops one day and he wanted these pair of Timberland boots and they had laces. And he tied the shoelace in front of us for the first time at about 15.
Right.
And I was just totally shocked. What happened in his mind that switched that on? And then I had a friend of ours who was in his 30s and couldn't tie his shoelace. So he always wore push-on shoes.
Okay.
And he told me And he was so embarrassed by it. And that happened before my son learned to tie shoelaces. And I said, it's okay. That's why they invented Velcro.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it just changes. It turns the world upside down. The things we expect. We can change how we measure success and how we interact with individuals quite easily.
So what was it that Carl, the swimming coach, saw in him at 3 that made him say he can swim within an hour?
I think he's fearless.
His fearlessness.
Yeah, he was fearless. Because for his age, I think he was the only one going into the deep end. His parents had already put a barrier on the children. Yeah. Most of them at 3 were in the little pool, the baby pool, the kiddies pool. Yeah, that was probably a foot deep.
Yeah.
And he was in the deep end and quite happily just going up and down, not getting tired, not aware of danger, per se. So that led Carl to believe, and we never instilled the sort of you could drown type methodology in him. So I was always there to catch him. But never said to him, no, don't go there, it's dangerous, you could drown. So Carl probably sorted that over a few weeks and he just swam. It was absolutely amazing.
And then when you, so as he's growing up, and at what point did you have that kind of moment that you thought, well, I could really help Sam through his sports and through, this triathlete now? Where was that turning point for you that this is actually now a future that we can map out for him?
Well, that didn't happen until about 4 years ago, really.
Oh, okay.
It's that recent. 2019, we ran a half Ironman race in Cascais in Portugal.
Right.
And just outside Lisbon. And during that race, he had, they call it, and if you run at all, you get gut issues. So you can get bloating and just gets rumbled because the food in there bounces up and down. And he had fairly severe gut pain from bloating, from during the run and the cycle. And despite all of that, he wouldn't quit.
Right.
So we found another trait of fear of failure. He doesn't want to, do not finish, doesn't want to be disqualified, very strong in his makeup. And that's when the triathlon journey, it's not when it started, but that's when we decided to take it from being a bucket list of activities into thinking, how can we raise a champion?
Right.
Is this what you're going to do for the rest of your life? Because I think at that time, the employment rate for adults with autism back in 2019 had to be around 15%. And that wasn't in what I call wholesome, worthwhile roles. There were part-time, there were voluntary type work. And today the numbers, only 20% of people on the autistic spectrum actually are in full-time employment.
Right.
In the UK. And there are about 800,000, about 700,000 people in the UK on the autistic spectrum. So there's a lot of talent in some areas being missed.
Yeah.
And then we went to one of the local supermarkets as they're looking for a job for him to give him some work and to socialize, meet people, just at the shelves, and they wouldn't offer him a job. And it was, 10 minutes walk from home, which had been good for him. Not about the money, but the socialization and
yes,
give him a reason to get up in the morning. And then I did some further research, and they said the life expectancy for people on the spectrum was about 15 years less than neurotypical, individual.
Right. Okay.
So I just thought he's got to get healthy. And that's when we embarked on sport as a way for him to get healthy, sport for him to go to a sports club, to socialize, because he didn't like socializing, still doesn't like it. He's much better now.
Right.
So we went to, sports club, joined a running club and that sort of stuff. Did the park run. Used to do the park run every Saturday morning.
Okay.
And then we used that as the platform for getting him healthy. And then we realized that he does have a sort of no guts, no glory attitude about him. Okay. And that sort of goes back to how he was swimming, the fearlessness of swimming.
Right.
And I think the other challenge we had is, even though he could swim, there wasn't a pathway for him through the club and national structure for someone on the spectrum to get good.
Right.
Yeah. There wasn't a junior swimming club. There was a seniors, there's no way. So we're sort of plowing a lonely furrow on our own, but it's life. It's what we've always done.
Yeah. So there's so many things here. One of the things that you just said, when you have autism, you have gut problems. I wasn't aware of the other physical aspects of how autism can affect you. So as well as potential gut problems, what other things are there that maybe are hidden from people's view of having autism or being on that spectrum can have as an effect on your body?
Well, the first thing I'd say is, if you met Sam and saw him, you wouldn't know he's autistic.
Right.
Okay, so it's called the invisible disability to start with. The other things that affect him in life is his biggest challenge is communication skills, social skills. Okay. If he doesn't want to talk to you, he will not talk to you. I suppose we know lots of people like that, but for him it's like, I ain't talking to you, I'm not in the mood today. Or he's focused on something, so focused he will not look up and interact with anybody. He's not necessarily the best person at initiating conversation. But he will do if he has to go into the Costa Coffee or wherever and buy himself something to eat. He has to order the food. Yeah. But he's actually learned that he can now go into your sushi and scan the QR code.
Or not have to talk to anyone.
without talking to anybody.
Yeah.
So, he finds ways of actually coping. He will go to the same pizza restaurant and not any other because the guy knows it. By the time he sits down in there, walks to the door, the guy says, same again. And one of Sam's favorite series is Cheers, with Norm and Sam Malone and so on.
Right.
And they sit at the same place in the bar and have the same drink every time.
Yeah.
And he likes that type of interaction because it's safe, it's repeatable for him, and it's easy.
Right.
So yeah, it's and then there are the sensory issues. So loud noises, crowds, a whole host of other things that he's had to deal with. And I think the good thing is, as parents, we took two different views. Mum would always say, Mum's erring more on the cautious side. Things to say, you got to explain it to him properly, introduce him slowly. I'll just push him in the sea.
Right.
And I don't mean literally, but
yeah, I know what you mean. Yeah.
I will challenge him in a way that she will never ever challenge him, and that's good because there's sometimes that how she manages the relationship is different. It's necessary for him to grow as well because in my world, and maybe how I even got involved in business, as a manager, as a leader, was about conflict and conflict resolution. So I very rarely avoided conflict. I actually dealt with conflict head on, but always with solutions. And I still carry some of that with me. And I think the most recent one, we did a race recently in Finland. I went to Lahti for the World Championships in Finland. And I didn't know that they had to jump off a pontoon into the lake to swim.
Okay.
Normally they sort of run into the water, dive in and swim.
Okay, all right.
Or they swim about 25 meters out and somebody says go and they're off. This time they jumped off a pontoon. And after the race, he said to me, that was so scary. I've never done that before. And I didn't know how it would affect him. But he jumped off into this dark lake, 3 meters deep, came up and swam. And guess what? He had no choice.
Yeah.
He could have panicked and stopped. But the desire to complete the race was stronger than his desire to stay under the water and not come up.
Right.
And I'm telling you, I was so close to that. If anything happened, I'd have been in there. Right. So,
yeah.
There were lots of situations like that where I will introduce the situations that he's not expecting and get him to manage them. And even if it means he runs away, I don't mind. But it's about facing the challenges that he has in life. And
so you decided 2019 to leave the corporate world to become his coach. Is that the right sort of timing? And
yeah.
I suppose, before that, did you do any sort of sports coaching yourself, or was it just like, okay, this is what we're going to do, and I'm going to quit my work and I'm just going to learn how to do this?
Yeah. Never coached.
Okay.
before, never did sports coaching.
Mm-hmm.
In sales, you coach your staff and you manage relationships. Not the same at all. There are similarities, but I'm talking about as a formal job, as a formal role. And I think the most challenging thing is being a dad and a coach is always quite a fascinating mixture. It's not toxic. It's quite interesting because I have different expectations of him as my son and then as an athlete. And it's interesting how we deal with that. But I know now, and I know about a year ago, I'd never go back in the sport. But someone always said to me, you have a price. If somebody offered me a lot of money for a short-term project, I might do it, but I won't do it at the expense of myself. I don't want to do it. I can survive without doing it. And for me, it's more important that I help him to develop his future.
Right.
And for me to do something different. It is the most fulfilling job in the world to see your children succeed.
Yes.
There's nothing like it. And I'm not talking about saying, off you go to university, you got a first class honours degree, haven't I done well? It's every day I'm with him. Every day we're talking about this, day after day after day, pushing him, prodding him, getting him to challenge himself, get him to go faster, get him to be competitive. Getting him to learn how to deal with failure. One of the races he fell off his bike. He had a crash. And, we watch the races on television. You see these pros crashing all the time.
Mm-hmm.
Pretty bad crashes with collarbone broken and all sorts of bad injuries. And I didn't know how he would react to a crash. But the only way you're going to find out is when he crashes.
Mm-hmm. How did he react to that?
He got up, put the chain back on the bike, brushed himself off, got back on the bike, and cycled back to base, did a transition into the run, and still ran a 90-minute half marathon. Didn't tell me when he got off the bike that he fell.
Okay.
Didn't tell me. He just ran right past me.
Yeah.
And said he's okay. Give me the thumbs up. And at the end of the race, we saw the massive road rash on the side of his tri-suit where it ripped through him and he fell down, and the massive bruise on his elbow and his arm. And he was like, war wound, he calls it. He calls them war wounds. And so it's good and it's bad. It's good that he could push himself through it. It's good that he has a high pain threshold. It's good that he didn't stop. It's bad because I think he would keep going if he had one leg.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. He wouldn't give up. I mean, when he gives up, then I know it's bad.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. I know it's bad.
Is this, do you think, down to, because a lot of autistic people, they like their specific kind of routine and their specific kind of structure. So is his desire to get to the end of the race because the race has got a structure? You swim, you cycle, you run, and you've got to complete that structure to feel you've completed that task as a whole?
Answer is yes, 100%.
Mm-hmm.
I think the answer is sort of simpler.
Okay.
I've learned in hindsight. So he's a computer gamer.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember him being at South Thames College doing his BTEC in IT level 3. And he was playing Mario Karts in the student common room. I don't know what you call it these days, but he was playing in there. And for 2 years at that college, he never got beaten at Mario Kart. And I mean that every student in every year across the college came to him at lunchtime. They'd have a chair for him and he'd sit there. As soon as he entered the room, they'd give him the chair.
The champion is here.
And the champion's here. And he never got beaten. And he has a really great innate ability to remember maps and games. So if he plays the game often enough, eventually you remember where every piece is on that.
All right.
He doesn't even, sometimes, I don't think and it comes back to the teaching himself to type. When he came to use a game controller, it was the same skill of learning to teach himself to touch type. Okay? And then you talk about the starter, finishing, completer, finisher. In the game, you always get to the end of the next level.
Yeah.
And that's exactly what triathlon is. You swim, you bike, you run, you do this distance. And what we've done to help him is we've gamified the whole process.
Okay.
So there's technology out there that simulates races. So they have a video, and the faster you ride, the faster you go through the video of the race.
Okay.
Yeah. He has a watch that is GPS linked, which tells him how fast he's going.
Mm-hmm.
It has an alarm on it that tells him when to eat.
Right.
Yeah. So all of the things that people can easily forget, I've actually taken any tech. I mean, I just buy any tech I can to help him to make the process significantly easier.
Mm-hmm.
And the tech's been quite significant in the way he races, because I've trained him to run at a certain pace.
Okay.
And the watch will say you're running at 16, 17 kilometers an hour. And the watch even has what they call, they have a bar on it, and it tells you if you're running behind pace, you need to pick up. So you're always in that little margin, and it tells you all of these things while you're watching. Just looks down at his watch.
Right.
You can keep within a zone quite easily. And especially for Ironman racing, he needs to eat during the race. So all of these things help him to get to the end.
Right.
And it's that notion of repeat, master, which I think is the key to this. So if you want to learn to touch type, it's repeat, master. If you want to learn to swim, it's repeat, master. Same with running, same with cycling. And the other thing I bring is, I think it was Len Better who said to Faldo, the golfer, I think it was, can't remember exactly, but he said, everyone should say practice makes perfect. And Len Better said it's perfect practice that makes perfect. Made your life, perfecting the wrong thing.
That's a good saying. Perfect practice makes perfect. Yeah, so true. So how did you come up with this routine, having not been a sports coach and now deciding to coach your son? How did you decide, well, I'm going to have him run at 16, 17 kilometers an hour, or whatever other kind of metrics you decided on or came up with?
Yeah, I think the reason I also became his coach is I had other coaches.
Right.
And in today's virtual world, you have what you call a virtual coach.
Yeah.
So they set your plan, and once a week they call you and say, how's it going? And you say, really well, or a bit of banter via Zoom or Teams or something. And there's a bit of banter, or blue jeans, of course. And there's a bit of banter, and you may see your coach once every month or something like that, and they take you on a run and they see what you're doing. And I know my son. Because of the way he thinks and behaves, he needs somebody there with him to be closer. It needs to be much more tactile,
right,
in the way that he learns, as opposed to someone remotely. Because remote coaches, you don't necessarily have a relationship. It's, it's not fair to say it's like going onto one of those dating apps and talking to someone for months. But it's not that intimate.
Kind of that,
yeah. I don't think it worked for him.
Right.
And therefore I could look at him at the end of the day and see if he was tired or not. Where the coach once a week wouldn't see him. And Sam does have an approach of saying, how was your run today? And he says, it was good, it was great. Any aches and pains? No. He's feeling good, very good. That's a symptom of him not saying, I failed. So if he was tired, if he was run down, he doesn't tell you. But I can look in his eyes, and I can question him half a dozen times and break down that stubborn sort of James Bond, I'm not going to talk, mentality.
Yeah.
Maybe this is how I feel. I don't feel good. I need a day off. I need to relax. And a remote coach isn't actually able to deliver that at all.
Right. Okay. So you took what they were kind of saying, and then you became the regular voice, if you like, the daily voice around those coaching principles or training principles.
Exactly.
That you should be applying.
And then I did a course on coaching. I still watch a lot of sports. This is all I do 24/7. I read, look at techniques. I look at, research. I read research articles. This is my life, right? And, our home, you come to my home now, the projector is up with, triathlon on, and the TV has football on, and Sam is on his iPad watching something else like curling. He likes art sports.
Right.
And that's basically a house. And my poor wife,
I was going to say,
no, we called it Shivi. So Saturday afternoons is Shivi.
Okay.
Where
so she gets Saturday afternoon to watch what she wants.
Anything she wants, and we have to stay there as well.
Oh, okay, right.
Yeah, which is sort of the punishment, yeah. So we call it Saturday afternoon Shivi. And so that's all right. So sport is really intrinsic, it's really important.
Mm-hmm.
And if it was sport, it might have been something else. But what has given Sam is self-esteem, self-confidence, and purpose.
Mm-hmm.
More than anything else.
Yeah.
And it's significantly helped with his social skills and how he speaks to people, because he's now doing events in the school. He goes and he stands up and he gives a speech about triathlon to primary school or secondary school kids.
Right.
And do a little bit of Q&A, which 3 years ago he couldn't have done. And I think sport has helped transform his life significantly. That's mine.
Yeah. And just as you were talking, I was thinking about your comment earlier that, you went to get him a job in Asda, potentially, stacking shelves in the supermarket. But the enriched life that he's got through sport and through what he's doing is probably made far more progress for him than if he had got that job and that was all he did, which is unfortunately where a lot of people kind of find themselves when they're on the neurodiverse scale, right? Is to get out from being stuck within that space to having a much more enriched and fuller life, I suppose. It gives them more, as you said, social skills and all these other skills that they develop.
I think work's quite a fascinating thing because my age and I've been around long enough working, and I think the notion of work has changed. The nature of work has changed in that there is no more job for life.
Yeah,
more people working from home. We're based in the service industry, so the nature of work has changed quite significantly. So there are people who are quite happy to work at Asda.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I think even years ago, before I got in corporate world, and I used to, as 18, 19, stacking shelves in Tesco myself, part-time job while I was at college, I had enough money left over at the end of the day to go partying and raving at the weekends.
Yeah,
I could buy clothes. Now, on the minimum wage, you can't live like that anymore. So everything's changed. And I think someone like Sam, or even someone who's neurotypical, the concept, I think, that our parents put to us, that if you work hard, you shall get rewarded, doesn't actually exist in the same way. There are a lot of people out there working hard and have nothing. And therefore, sometimes life's about luck as well.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you hear the guy saying, the harder I work, the more I get. No, I know a lot of people working hard who don't have a lot. Yeah?
Yes.
And some of us have been lucky, some of us have been fortunate. In terms of value, yes, I think we stumbled into sport. It wasn't a plan.
Mm-hmm.
It's not like, William's dad, saying, I'm going to have two girls and they're going to become champions.
Mm-hmm.
We didn't have a plan. It just happened.
Yeah.
And we are where we are. And I think when we started, it was about Sam's health, and it's just got so much bigger.
Mm-hmm.
We do presentations from Jamaica to Johannesburg and, Canada, Hawaii. We talk to people all around the world about sport and autism.
Yeah.
Because of the well-being side of it. And this is Mental Health Week as well. It's really good for your mental health. So what Sam is doing is much broader than finishing races and getting medals. Is actually informing and helping people and helping them change. It's giving a lot of people hope, I think, is what I use.
Yeah.
The amazing thing about it is Sam's just doing his job. He just does it. It's not that he doesn't know he's helping people, but that's not what he's interested in. He's interested in getting better and faster and getting medals.
Yeah. Yeah. The outcome is he's helping people because of the fact that he's got, neurodiversity, and therefore, he's a role model to others. So you touched on Hawaii then. I watched one of the interviews that you and Sam had, and I think the interviewer asked you, Tony, when are you doing your triathlon? So I'm not sure you answered when you were going to do it.
No, there is I didn't. That was good old Bob Babbitt when we were in Hawaii. So I do have a plan.
Okay.
I do have a plan, and it will be next year.
Right.
And I will find a race at somewhere like Dorney Lakes out in Windsor, which is not poisoned by the sewage in our seas.
Yeah.
See how great your nice lake. And I'll do a race there. So I have a plan.
Okay.
But it's really weird because I always get this question. Everybody takes the mick out of me because I said that. Because the day I said that, we were in Hawaii and I said it. And my wife was about 20 feet away. And there was the biggest dirty laugh you could ever hear from her. And I said it. And there were about 10 other people in there and they just started bending up and laughing.
Yeah.
And that didn't motivate me enough. This is scorn, it's, I think I have my own challenges about things I need to do. It's about getting healthy, about getting fitter as well. And it's funny, they always say the cobbler's shoes, the bottom of the cobbler's shoes are always dropping off.
Yeah.
And I can sit and I can debate fitness and health and endurance sports with a lot of people. And I know about so many methodologies. And I don't do it for myself. And that's probably my own personal challenge on why do I do it for others and not for me? That's my own personal. If I have to say something that I'd like to change for myself, I'm thinking, why don't I do it for me? I will wake him up in the morning and say, get on that bike, get out there.
Yeah.
And I'll fall into the park on my bike. I'll get myself a coffee and I'll take pictures of it while he's doing his laps.
Yeah.
And everyone says, why don't you go out there with him? You know what I think it is? It's just talking to you. He's just going to beat the bejesus out of me. And I don't like being beaten.
That's what I was thinking as you were talking. I was thinking, okay, well, why doesn't Tony do it? And it's because you've set a bar that's quite high right now with Sam, and Sam's got to that point, and you know that you won't be able to keep up with him, right? So it's like, why put yourself through that? So you could have kind of trained probably in private, in secret, away from him, and then one day, you've caught up with him and you've done that. So
I'll buy an e-bike. Okay.
Yeah.
I'll tell him to the e-bike.
Yeah. So as you know, Tony, the title of this podcast series is Success Matters. What does success mean to you?
Oh, personally, my success is different parts of my life. So I'll go back a little bit. Okay, it's important. So, I returned to England when I was about 17 years old. So I was in Jamaica in my formative years.
Right.
Yeah. So success has something different. Success was just about getting along, integrating in society. And then I taught myself to be a computer programmer, and then I got into IT and that sort of stuff. So, for your age, I taught myself Fortran, I taught myself to program and whatever. And I went off in my 30s and did an MBA, and been married for 33 years now. So I'm very much into stability. So success is a lot of things. Success, or the easiest way to define it is my success is that I've created an environment where my wife and my son can be happy and successful. That's success for me. It's seeing their happiness is my success. And it's not necessarily about material things because I'm not earning anywhere near the money I used to. But that's not my measure of success. It might have been one time, the money and the glamour and the glitzy cars.
Yeah.
But it's not. It's not for a long time, actually. But their success is my success. And it's, again, why I don't think of myself first. I think of them probably before I think of me.
Yeah, and that's... So would you say that kind of has changed over time in terms of what your measure of success is? Or was that something that was always there, and now you've got to this point where you've got that environment that's sort of stable for them and they're going to be successful, that now you've kind of given yourself the freedom to start coaching your son rather than sticking in the corporate world? Do you think there might be an element of that as part of your values that led to you to where you are now?
Yeah, I think I got bored of the corporate world. I'm not really bored of the corporate world. I think I really didn't fit there ever. It was sort of square peg in a round hole. And somebody said it to me once, and maybe I'm on the spectrum, so I heaven knows, but I think I might have been in the wrong roles because I'm more of a creative, problem-solving type of person, and I didn't get myself into there as necessarily happy. I was probably a better technician than I was a salesperson.
Right.
Yeah. I was a decent technician. I was a big bang and really every fault and all that stuff back in the day. And I went into sales because there was more money in sales.
Yeah.
There's more glitz and glamour, and I could do it. I got the gift of the gab, so I could do it. And I closed some humongous deals. But in hindsight, I think probably about 10, 15 years ago, when I had senior sales guys crying in front of me on a Monday morning going through their forecast, and I'd been on the other side of the table. I didn't want to do that anymore. People who had kids and mortgages. When you fire a few people at the end of the year, there is really no gratification in doing it.
No.
And there were people out there who loved it. It was a power trip. So it wasn't one of my power trips.
Yeah.
And I suppose like my son, and for my age, I was one of the first black sales guys out there, really in IT sales back in the day. And didn't want to carry that anymore. I just got fed up with fighting. I've seen and heard too many things that I didn't agree with. And I probably should have walked around the job, but I stayed because I had bills to pay.
Yeah.
In hindsight. Success and transformation, they mean different things at different times in my life. And now I've found self-actualization. Yeah. More than anything else. Except I've got to get fitter. That's the one thing that's outstanding.
So actually, that leads quite nicely to the question that my previous guest has asked me to ask you. Yeah. And I'll read it out because it's a little bit long. He said,
so if you knew, by doing what you should do, whatever that might be, was going to get you to a place of success, like you just knew that you weren't going to fail, you knew it was going to get you to where you need to be, what would you need to do to get there?
Listen.
Okay.
Listen more. It's just listen more. That was all. I think it's also, in marriage, probably as important to me is giving in.
Okay.
It's fighting a fight all the time, right? And it actually doesn't matter most of the time. It's, and I suppose those are the two things. It's listening. And from my son, I've learned unconditional love. I've learned humility. I did a presentation the other day and similar sort of question. And there are traits in my son that are the traits of all the best CEOs and leaders, that he's determined, never gives up, he's consistent, he's focused, all of those things. Communication skills aren't as hot as it probably should be.
Yeah.
But I did a checklist on that and I thought, wow, there's a lot CEOs, CTOs, chief future officers can learn from someone who's on the spectrum. And that hyper-focus, so there are things I'm constantly learning from him every day. Yeah, and I think, as I said, the biggest thing is unconditional love. That humility. Those are the three things. The two things. And I said, if I listened more and did those two things, I'd probably be sitting in the Himalayas in a mountain as listening to the world go by and closer to to nature or stuff like that.
As a little yogi sitting there watching.
Well, fat yogi, what I mean. It's, the Buddha was the slim guy himself, so fat Buddha somewhere,
Yeah. So do you have a question for my next guest?
Wow, your next guest.
I have no idea who my next guest is, by the way, so I can't guide you in what the question should be or look like.
I would say to your next guest, if you gave them a blank piece of paper today to say what they'd have liked to achieve in life, what would they write on it? What are the 5 things they'd write on that blank piece of paper? The other way to interpret it is if you had a dream. Most of us are stuck in the jobs that we don't want to do. So with a blank piece of paper, what would that thing be? And how would you achieve it with the knowledge you know today?
Okay.
Which I think is, I use that with a lot of people who are struggling in their career. And they say, oh God, I'm stuck in this senior finance job and I'm making lots of money, but I hate it.
Yeah.
So I said, if you're going to give it up tomorrow, what would you do? And that is such a difficult question.
Yeah.
And one other question that I was asked one day that really messed me up is, are you happy? And if not, what would make you happy?
Mm-hmm.
Happiness is quite a fascinating question.
It is.
I'm giving you 2 questions, so.
No, that's cool. Thank you for that. And I mean, when I'm coaching people, I often say, if money were no object, what would you be doing? And that often opens up a whole new set of thoughts and ideas, because then I'm not stuck to this job because money's not an object, right? So now
the more interesting question is, if you had nothing, what would you do?
Yeah.
Yeah. Because it's to create something from nothing. You see, when you have money, then it's easy. You can make mistakes, you can fall over, and there's a safety net all the time financially. But when you have nothing and there is no safety net, how do you get that sense of hustle to get yourself out of the trap you're in, which a lot of people in society are in today? It's a twist on the question.
Yes.
Yeah. If you woke up tomorrow morning and you lost everything that you had, and I'll give you your car so you could sleep in it, how would you rebuild yourself?
Yeah.
Anyway.
Yeah, that kind of strips away everything, doesn't it? So
that's why I'm terrible. I keep just listening. Sorry.
That's okay. We're approaching the top of our time now. So what's next for Sam and Tony?
So the next goal for me and for us, basically, is probably the most challenging aspect of what we're doing. And I call it how to make a champion. So I can coach him to get fit. I can train him to run. I can train him to compete. But training to become a champion is a totally different kettle of fish. Right. Because it's not the physiological, it's the psychological as well. And then he's autistic. And I don't know how to break that one. I don't know many people who can, because there are not many people who are doing or done what we're doing now. Not many.
Yeah.
So that is, for me, my big challenge, to find out the secret, the code to what can make him go faster to get him podium as a champion. And that's the next 2 years, making him a champion. And then it's the story, the movie, that sort of stuff. They said Denzel Washington would play me.
Oh, okay.
And my wife would be played by Viola Davis. So that's what they're saying. So, it's primarily about leaving Sam a legacy.
Yeah, yes.
So that when I'm gone, he has enough money to not be worried about it.
Yeah.
I can do anything he wants to do.
And if people want to find out more, or understand a bit more about autism, or even get involved in helping you, where should they go and how could they contact you?
Instagram, social media handle is at Sam Holness Try. You'll find him. We have a website, is samholness.com. And if you just go into Google and type Sam Holness Ironman, you will see everything from Sky, Euronews, Channel 5, articles in the Times. There's just so much stuff out there about him and what we're doing. And, if there are any big corporate sponsors that want to hit their, D&I targets and university targets, get in contact with me.
Okay, cool. We'll put that shout out there.
But he's got to call them.
Well, yes, indeed. So we're at the top of our time now. So it's been a great conversation. Thank you very much for taking part in Success Matters. And I wish Sam and you and your wife, of course, all the best in developing that champion-winning mindset.
Thanks, Andrew.
If you'd like to find out more about how you can find your success, contact me at info@successmatterscoaching.com. That's info@successmatterscoaching.com.